My apologies. We're going to go ahead and restart if we could. We have roll call.
Commissioner Drosky,
Here.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Morales,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hudson.
Here.
Mayor Gantz.
Here. Could you please have a moment of silence, our pledge of allegiance? And a moment of silence to be contributed to those training. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We could have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for February 15th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion from Commissioner Parnell, second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes for our community appearance board meeting for December 8th, 2021. Our African American Heritage Board meeting minutes for July 22nd, August 12th, September 9th, October 14th, November 4th, November 16th, December 9th, December 21, January 13th, and February 3rd, of 2021, 2022. And our non-uniform retirement committee meeting minutes from November 8th of 2021. Move to approve.
Second.
I have Commissioner Drosky, your hand up.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to speak a quick minute about the city board minutes, because if you notice our agenda, it says acknowledgement of the city board minutes, yet at every commission meeting, we do a motion to approve. And I don't, in my opinion, we're technically not approving them. I mean, we're not at these boards. We don't know what's happening. So we're not approving the board minutes. We're supposed to be acknowledging them. Easy for me to say. So really, I think even though it may be splitting hairs, I think a motion to acknowledge going forward would be more appropriate. That's my 2 cents. And as far as tonight goes, if you look at the minutes from the African American Heritage Board, I don't want to minimize the great work that committee does, but if you look at their minutes, it's very challenging to figure out what's going on. There's references to individuals by first name only. I have no idea who they're talking about, what's going on. There's incomplete sentences. It's very difficult to understand and follow along. So I think there needs to be some work on those minutes going forward. So I'm not prepared to put my stamp of approval on those tonight to acknowledge or approve or whatever that we're doing. So I don't know if you want to separate those out and approve the other ones or approve them as a whole. But I mean, either way, I'm going to be a no on that, just because I think we just need to do a better job with those minutes going forward. Because if you look at it, it's very challenging.
We currently have a motion and a second right now. Would anyone like to make an amendment to that? No? Okay. Your point is taken, Commissioner Drosky. I can see the issue there with minutes. And I understand what the point is. And probably it is an acknowledgement of the city board meeting minutes. That's what we are doing. So we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Parnas, do you want to speak?
Yes, what we might do is have the head of the committee given a book of Robert's rules as to what should go in minutes. It would simplify things.
Well, I don't think Robert rules is what's going to solve the problem. If you take a actually look at the minutes, you'll see that they don't reference anyone by last name.
I know, but
There's a lot of different issues that are there. I don't think it's Robert rules to solve that, but I think we could have staff use guidance on it.
Fine.
We have a motion. Second.
Yeah.
Can we have city manager, your hand is raised.
Thank you, Mayor. David Santucci, City Manager. Commissioner Drosky, thank you for your comments. I also recognize that and had a discussion with the city clerk. So we're going to work with the board, not only on the way in which the minutes are taken, but also the timeliness of them as well. So I appreciate you recognizing that. And I've already had that discussion with the city clerk. So we will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to do roll call then on the motion.
Commissioner Drosky,
No.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Dan.
Yes. We have approval of the agenda for March 1st, 2022. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from the Vice Mayor, we have second by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
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 One thing I would like to say, if it's all right with the commission, we've approved the agenda. If we can move up item number 6, and I'll let the city attorney give us some guidance on where I can move that up on the agenda, but I would like to have that item moved up. I think we have a lot of people that are here, including our County Commissioner Mark Bogan is in the audience here tonight, and I want to make sure that we utilize his time well. So,
Mayor, you can move it up before item number 1 after the clerk gives the instructions on the Zoom meeting.
excellent. Commissioner, is everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Any other public wish to provide comments during tonight's meeting? 3 minutes will be provided. However, 1 additional minute can be granted by Mayor Dan. Anyone connected online via Zoom video must hover the mouse at the bottom of the screen and click the participants tab. On the right, click raise hand. You'll be recognized by your mobile name and your audio will be unmuted. Those participating via landline or mobile, simply dial *9 to raise your hand. You will be recognized by the last 3 digits of your phone number. You may dial *6 if necessary to unmute. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 6 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield, Florida, approving an amendment to section 3.04 elections and terms of the city charter to modify the term restrictions for the City Commission, providing requisite ballot language for submission to electors, calling for a special election on the proposed amendment to the city charter to be held on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, providing for submission to the electors for approval or disapproval of the proposed charter amendment, providing for requisite ballot language, providing procedure for balloting, providing for notice, providing for related matters, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading, and it's sponsored by Commissioner Parnas, who I believe has a presentation, and I will be available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioner Parnas, you want to get started?
Yes. This is an important issue. It wasn't that many years ago that the public voted to limit terms to 2 terms, 8 years, the commissioners and the mayor. However, this is the 21st century. And I look at the county as a whole. And out of the 31 cities, 20 cities have either no limits or at least 3. And I'm going to read them into the record. No limits, they can run forever. Plantation, Sunrise, Davie, Pembroke Pines, Pompano Beach, Allendale Beach, North Lauderdale, Pembroke Pines, Wilton Manor, Southwest Ranches, Miramar, and Lazy Lake. 12 years, which is 3 terms. Hollywood, Lauderhill, Fort Lauderdale, Coconut Creek, Westport, Margate, Cooper City, and Lighthouse Point. That is 20 out of 31 cities have more than 2 terms. I am not asking you tonight to pass judgment on whether we should have 2 terms or 3 terms. That is a decision that I feel should be made by the voters. This ordinance tonight that we are bringing forth is only to put it on the November ballot and let the voters decide. If you think this is an issue that the voters should decide, here's your chance in a minute to speak. If you think it's not, here's your chance to speak. I just feel that this is an important item and a change in our charter, and it should be decided by the voters.
that you have?
That's good for a start.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments? I would like to get some commission input before we open to the public, but okay. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I have read over this and I understand exactly where Commissioner Barnett is coming from. I understand his concern. I understand why he might bring it forward. But I can tell you that I've received calls since the residents have become aware of this, and I have not. I'm to receive one call in support of this. Everybody that called me was not for this. Thought it would be unhealthy for the city, and I understand their concerns. Actually, I am amenable to how they feel about that. So I think that when we look at city charter, when it's in place, we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? Is it worth it? You have 8 years to be able to make your case. You have 4, and if you make your case good enough, then the residents may ask you back for additional support. I think that 8 years is enough. That's enough to be able to do the job if you're doing a good job. And after that, after 8 years, hopefully you've built an alliance in the community, and that will allow someone else to have a chance, give somebody else a chance. And I think we'll work best that way.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Hudak or Drosky, any comments?
Sure.
See a lot of people moving towards the camera, but no one clicking their,
No, I clicked mine. I don't know if
okay.
the right button
I
or
don't,
not.
I don't see you for some reason, but.
Oh, there we go. How about
Commissioner
that?
Hudak.
There we go. Thank you. This is a tough decision, and I understand letting the voters decide. But you know, the vice mayor said something that I have to listen to, and you know, the charter is there for a reason, and if the system is not broken, why are we looking to change it? Why are we looking to amend it? When I first got elected, I thought, well, 4 years, I'll be able to accomplish a whole bunch of stuff. And then my eyes opened at how slow government does run. And it does take a couple of years just to get your sea legs and build the relationships that you need in order to make the change that you got elected to do. But I also feel that 8 years is a long enough time to put your stamp on the city and to give back to the community. There are other avenues. There's you can run for mayor. You can wait the 4 years, and if the individual who replaced you did not do as good a job as you had hoped, you can run again. So I think, I understand to letting the voters decide, but I haven't really heard an outcry of individuals wanting this changed. I have received phone calls from individuals who want it to stay the way it is. And so I'm not sure why we're looking to change this at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Both my colleagues, the Vice Mayor, Preston, and Commissioner Hudak make good points, and I'm going to echo some of them. As far as the merits of the proposal before us, Commissioner Hudak was saying that it does take a couple years to get your sea legs in this position, to figure out, who the players are, not just in the city, but in the county and at the state level, and to develop those relationships. So when there's turnover on the commission, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that goes with that. and a lot of institutional knowledge that benefits the city of Deerfield Beach and its residents. By the same token, I also tend to agree with the concept that you have 8 years to make your case to the residents. And if you look at the data, the empirical data from the other sister cities in Broward County, there is a case to be made that 2 terms is not enough. That the majority of the sister cities have no terms or 3-term limits beyond what the city of Deerfield Beach has. So this is an argument that has pluses and minuses on both sides. And oh, by the way, I have a big concern with this applying to the existing commission. It just seems it could be perceived as politicians granting themselves another term or doing themselves a favor. And I don't think that is the intent, but I certainly don't want it to be perceived that way going forward. What I propose is that this is something that is very important to the residents. It's something that I want to hear more from the residents. So I would be inclined to move this along to second reading so that I can have the opportunity to have a District 4 meeting. And I've already selected a date with the city manager for March 29. So to have a second reading, not at our next meeting in March, but at the first meeting in April, to give me the opportunity to have a district meeting and to hear from my residents that do they think this is a good idea or a bad idea. This is something that Commissioner Parnas is right. It should be decided by the voters. And I want to hear from my residents and the voters in my district what they think, because I am deciding for them. And the time that this was put on the agenda until tonight, honestly, was not enough time because I have a very expansive district that goes from I-95 on Hillsborough Boulevard to the Turnpike, south to Southwest 10th Street, and then east to Military Trail. That's a lot of ground to cover. I have a lot of big communities in my district, and I would like that input and feedback before I make a final determination. So if I were to move it along tonight, that doesn't mean I'm going to vote for it on second reading. But I think it's well served to give me and the rest of you the opportunity to speak in more detail to more members of our communities to see what they actually feel on this proposal. It's very far reaching. This is something when you change the charter that you should do with as much knowledge and as much input as possible. And I'm just asking for that opportunity to get that input from my residents so that I make the best decision going forward. I don't want a handful of people to decide this one way or another. I think it's too important. And so I've set up a District 4 meeting again on March 29 to have a second reading in the beginning of April. And let's see what my residents and your residents say and come back and have a more robust discussion on this rather than what we're doing tonight. I think this is too important to just kind of do it on the fly tonight. And so that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Throwing my 2 cents on it. I am uncomfortable as being someone sitting up here. It's going to be term limited. It is term limited out after this term to vote on something that would seem like it would give me another shot of sitting up here. By the time I'm done, it will be 16 years in office when I finish this term here in the city of Deerfield Beach. From the late 1980s to 2008, we had 2 mayors in the city of Deerfield Beach. That's it. I spent a lot of time sitting up here trying to correct a lot of the things that were done by those 2 mayors in that period of time. It's a lot of wasted time. So while I understand the point of it, it takes a little while to get acclimated, to get things done, and the speed of government is brutally painful. I can also tell you that having sat up here through a pandemic, through the greatest real estate crash that's happened since the Great Depression, there's been a lot of challenges. And I don't think it's, well, you've had 8 years to make your case and that's it. If you can't do it in that time frame, you should be done. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I will say this. I do think that the voters did vote for this. They did it for a reason. And I know that's been a little while ago, and despite some of the lies, they're just flat out non-factual information being put out there by people that really don't know what they're talking about, or they do, they're just liars. The voters decided on a lot of things. We had a charter review board that took a look at things. Or Commissioner Militello and Commissioner Miller had blamed saying that, well, they're the ones that were against moving elections from, let's say, March to November. The truth of the matter is, we had a citizen review board come together and vote on that and make recommendations to the commission before they made charter changes. The person that headed that committee up was Gene Robb. Gene Robb sat up here and said, when asked point blank, go back and look at the meeting minutes, to Commissioner Militello. When asked, do you think we should move from March to November? They said, no, we don't feel that you should, keep it exactly the way it is. But what they did say is, we do believe the term limit should be in effect. And we do believe that it should go to the voters, that we have staggered terms. And I think that serves the city well. It does have a flip side to that coin. It's not good for the city of Deerfield Beach. Issues like 10th Street in particular. I've watched people run for office that have come up here that have run from District 4 seat and say in a Sun Sentinel interview whether they thought, what do you think about 10th Street? They were so clueless and so uninvolved and unengaged that they said, well, I don't think it's a big deal. It's one of the biggest projects and that can have one of the most devastating effects on the city of Deerfield Beach than any project that's happened in the last 30, 40 years. That's how serious this project has been. And having spent 7 years going to meetings and negotiating with FDOT and the Broward MPO, the three people that have done it consistently have been myself, Commissioner Drosky, and Commissioner Parnas. That's a lot of institutional knowledge you lose should those three people be removed from this board. That's not healthy for the city of Deerfield Beach. It's not a knock on the District 1 or District 2 commissioners, but that just means that the districts that it has affected the most will be up for re-election at the same time. That's the flip side of this point. There's also the relationships that you have with the county, MPO, cities, you lose that. But I do believe that the people have spoken on this. I don't have a problem letting them speak again if this is what they feel. I see that we have some petitions that have been signed, and I'm always, well, it's nice to kind of have that. I don't use that as a huge weight as far as where my decisions go on that, because you never know how these petitions are presented to people, and sometimes people don't realize what they're signing. I have heard from people that are in support of this. I've heard from a lot of people that aren't in support of this. I do believe that the residents did speak at one point. If there wasn't a cost associated with letting them speak again on this issue, I would have no problem with it. I have a bit of a problem because there is an expense to do it. And the majority, not overwhelmingly, but the majority of people I've heard from are not in favor of this. So I'm curious to hear what the public has to say about this. Commissioner Parnas?
Yeah, Ben, if I may ask you, you say a number of people called you. How many exactly?
I don't know exactly.
Well, give me an estimate.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 30 people.
Good. I turned in 168 signatures for it, none against it. And we have the public here tonight. And as far as the issue, well, the public had spoken before. The public spoke when we originally adopted our charter, and then they spoke again to change it. Maybe it's time the public spoke again, whether or not to change it. All I'm asking is that we put it on the ballot and let the voters decide, not whether it's good or bad for the city, but giving the voters an opportunity to say their piece at the ballot. And as far as the expense is concerned, we give $50,000, if I remember, to a football team. I think we can give less than $1 for every voter in Deerfield, which happens to be 49,800 voters. The total cost would be $34,000 to put this on the ballot in November. That's one of the reasons I suggested November, because it would be the least expensive and probably the biggest turnout, because they have to be voting for senator and governor and congressman at that election. Mike, you also said you heard from your constituents, and Todd, specifically how many? I'd like to get an idea, a feel for how many people that you said were negative, and obviously none were positive in your district. Is that what you're telling me?
That is,
Well,
I would like to
I'm gonna
know.
go ahead and say, I know you directed the question to this, but I'll tell you from my experience what I've got. I've
Okay.
gotten one person that called in and, or sent an email in that wanted to speak in favor of it. I've talked to probably 2 or 3 other people that said they were in favor of it. I've talked to about 8 to 10 people that said they were against
Okay.
it. So to give you the numbers of where I'm at on that. Commissioner Hudak, Commissioner Drosky, I don't know if you want to comment on the question asked by Commissioner Parnas.
I have not had one call for somebody who is for it, and I've had 4 calls for people that are against it.
4 calls, okay. At this point, I'd like to hear from the public.
Commissioner Drosky, do you want to answer that question also?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I have had 0 calls for, and I've had 0 calls against. I received 1 email today from a District 4 resident, which I think you all received, which was against. And I have proactively on my own called key members of my district, asking them what they thought about the proposal before tonight. And it was probably less than 10. And I did not keep a scorecard, but I would say most of them did not have a problem with it. Surprisingly, they did not have an issue with it, but that's 10 people in my district. I do not want to make a decision on. That's why I want to have a district meeting and to go to association meetings in my district to get more input to make a decision on this important issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Drosky. I'm gonna go ahead and open it to the public. I'm gonna start with those in the room here tonight. So you're gonna like to come up and speak on this item. Just come up, give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Mark Bogan. I am the Broward County Commissioner from Coral Springs, and after several years of the pandemic, it's great to be here. I feel 10 years older after 2 years, but I'm very happy to see you and address this issue real quickly, Mayor.
Absolutely, sir.
So, as a Broward County Commissioner, I ran 8 years ago. I'm actually going into my 3rd term. And when I first got elected to the Broward County Commission, there was the issue of the penny tax, right? And I felt I'm against raising tax. I'm absolutely opposed to the commissioners raising tax. And even though I was opposed to it, I had so many people saying, let the voters decide. And I was against it. I would never vote for any taxes to raise taxes for the public, whether it be millage tax or a penny tax. But even though I was against it, I gave it to the voters, and surprisingly, the voters voted for it, which ended up giving millions of dollars to Deerfield Beach with the transportation. And now they were talking also years ago about we don't get an elected mayor, we rotate our mayor. And the charter review wanted to have an elected mayor, put it on the ballot. I was against it. I said exactly what you said, Mayor. If it's not broken, why fix it? But we come around to let the voters decide. That's what I think where we're going to be. Mayor's situation. Now, as a Broward County Commissioner, I run in 5 states. The most important issue that I feel in Deerfield, a lot of important issues, is the 10th Street. It could be devastating. It could be done effectively. We're talking about a project with, what is it there, billions of dollars that could really hurt or help this community. And so when I got involved 8 years ago, it's still going on. 8 years ago, I was working with your commission and trying to help come up with something that will help the city of Deerfield. The state could care less about the people of Deerfield. I'll say it again, the state of Florida, Department of Transportation, in my opinion, cares less about how the people of Deerfield feel. They want to do what the vendors do, but it's important. So I kind of want to emphasize what the mayor said. It's really important. The biggest issue you have right now that'll affect the most voters is 10th Street. And that's why I would think you want to let the voters decide. That's all. I don't think you should make any decisions. I think it's always good to let the voters decide. Because if 3 people leave the middle, this thing isn't done yet. I just want to say, I don't know if that will be impactful, if that will hurt your city. I certainly can't help if the knowledge of your commission leaves the city with one of the biggest issues still facing the city. So, you know, while I am totally for term limits, I think Commissioner Parnes talked about 20 of 31 cities either don't have. I think people want term limits. People want their elected officials to come and they want them to go. They don't want them sticking around forever. But to add one term, if the voters don't want it, let them say they don't want it. But all I'm for is letting voters decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Richards. I'm at 374 Harwood Ave, Deerfield Beach. And I came to tell you that I'm very proud of Commissioner Parnes because he had the guts to bring this up. And Mayor, you can more than understand, you had 2 terms as commissioner, and then you were elected as mayor, and the second term for mayor, you are unopposed, which means that the city likes what you're doing or they wouldn't have voted for you. I think the entire voting bloc needs to decide whether you should stay or go. I think all of you, I'm proud of everything that you're doing. I think you're all doing a very good job. I'm listening to Commissioner Bogan talking about the 10th Street overpass, and we've been very passionate against this. And we're being suckered into this. Many of the people who live in Century Village, the older people that were against it, they're not here anymore, and homes that they passed away. You have all younger people that don't care. They're not interested. So I'm hoping that you'll have another meeting and you'll let more people talk about it and you'll decide accordingly. And thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra Jackson, 386 South 35th Avenue. Todd, I am in your district and I am against this. We have one, okay? I think the voters has already decided. I think it's wrong if you guys go ahead and put this back to be on the agenda, and also Parnes. I'm not coming at you. You always like to compare stuff when District 2 has something going on there, and again for the kids, you mentioned about they gave a bunch of kids $50,000. That's no comparison. Where you put this on the ballot, it's costing the taxpayers money. Okay, that's to help those kids that doesn't have in our city. We don't have any kind of sports really for our kids in the city of Deerfield Beach. So please don't compare the two. And you like to throw stuff out on District 2 with precedent. I noticed that. Not getting at you, but please, there's no comparison. I'm against it. There's a lot of people against it. And you got to put it on the ballot. I want to tell you, I am one that will be knocking on just about everybody's door to tell them to vote against it. Remember that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ray Wilson. I'm from 498 Durham Q here in Deerfield Beach. I don't see any reason not to put this as an amendment on the ballot. Thought it through. I think if you find a commissioner that is a quality commissioner and shows energy and commitment to the people will decide whether they want it or don't want him or her. And I don't see any reason to not let them vote. I think the cost is minimal compared to getting a quality commissioner that really knows what's going on. So I would say trust the people. If you really have opposition to this, they're going to vote against it anyway. That's my position on it. Thank you for giving me the time to speak on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mooney. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. This is an important item. because it is gonna be a change to the city charter. I feel the decision should be left to the
But I'm
voters in
sorry,
November.
I'm sorry. I did not get the address.
Did you want my address, honey?
Name and
Okay,
address,
sorry,
please.
4891 Northwest 18th Avenue, Deerfield.
And your name?
Linda.
Thank you.
I feel if voters want to keep the current mayor and commissioners for a third term, then it should be up to the voters to make that decision. And I say, put it on the referendum. It's not a yea or a nay. It's just let the voters decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Paula Cook. I'm at 62 Centennial Court, Deerfield. And I just have a question. When is the last time voters addressed this question?
I believe that was in 2004.
2004. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 2006, actually, now, sorry, 2006. Hi, good evening. My name is Billy Victor. I live at 48 Northeast 19th Terrace in Deerfield. I'm here tonight to say I oppose term limits. We have an election process here in Deerfield Beach. If we're unhappy with one of our elected officials, we vote them out of office. On the other hand, if someone is doing a good job and continues to do a good job, why would we want to get rid of them? For that reason, I stand here and say I am against term limits. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Alicia Portier, 140 Northeast 5th Street, Deerfield Beach. Excuse me. I have a couple of questions. I need a clarification for a couple of things. Excuse me. Isn't there a way already if a commissioner is term limited out where they can run for a third term? Isn't there a process for that?
No,
No? Did it used to be?
I'm not sure, but I don't believe so. So yeah, term limits.
So there's no way, to say, I want to get on the ballot or state or, run for a third term.
Not here in the city of Deerfield Beach. No.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm sure some have tried, but yeah, no.
Okay, but there is no way to do that.
No.
One term limits are term limits, that's it.
That's
Two
it.
terms, you're out.
Yeah.
That's it, unless you run for a different seat.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, second question. I understand the need or want for continuity toward the 10th Street project. Is there, let's say, the three people who have worked the most on that, term limited out, don't get reelected, or this doesn't pass for a third term. There is no way that the new people who would be appointed to the board or the NPO or whatever, for that knowledge to be passed on, or for them to do their homework on what has happened in the last 10 years or so regarding 10th Street.
I'm sure there could be.
So, okay, want that, okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. All right.
Hi, Gary. My name is Richard Rosenzweig, 97 Farnaby, Deerfield Beach, former commissioner, and have worked on 10th Street Freeway and found other projects. I would say that if the term limits came up, the commissioner lost his seat. The people like myself out there who know about 10th Street, working on it, Century Village, to continue on that, be upset. However, has made a decision on that, and I've seen no lawsuit come forward or anything to stop that in any way. And certainly, Mayor, you did a tremendous job. The 19 points you gave there, I don't think they adopted many of them. But thank you for what you accomplished. Adding a third city to Deerfield Beach, I raise the same question. Why? Why? It's not broken. We need to change the charter and raise money for a charter amendment that wasn't necessary. And if it goes on the charter, it goes on the ballot in November, that ballot is so long, the reason they moved it from that election process to March was they felt that not enough of the city residents voted in that election. They didn't get down to the bottom of the ballot. So I raised that issue once before myself on the commission. This is the answer. And what is this issue addressing? What problem are we trying to solve? For Deerfield Beach, this term limit extension is trying to solve. Whose benefit? Is it necessary? Step aside, solve a real problem for city residents. 2, there is no actual observable problem. There's the issue of self-interest, fairness. Is this a real or perceived problem for good governance? The Deerfield Beach City Commission should not be seen as making changes to procedure, city law Deerfield Beach Charter. To avoid the appearance of old Florida dealing, this provision should only apply to new commissioners elected to the commission in order to avoid the appearance of impropriety. Failing to do that would forever tarnish the reputation of the entire commission in the city of Deerfield Beach. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Adam Chapman, 1086 South Military Trail, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I'm here to state that it's the right of the people to vote. Isn't that our right to vote? And I agree that we, as the people, should vote.
Thank you.
Jane Shaffron, 48 Northlands, 19th Terrace. Unfortunately, I was not a Florida resident in 2006, so I didn't get to vote then on this issue. But I oppose term limits for our local officials. Do we really want to limit the choices of voters? If voters want to keep electing officials who are doing a fabulous job, we, the voters, should have a right to make that decision. Why punish elected officials who are hardworking, competent, skilled, experienced, valuable representatives of our city? And why punish voters and deprive us of our democratic right to elect people we believe are doing a great job? I feel that term limits are arbitrary and unwise, period. I applaud this amendment and I look forward to voting for it on the ballot. Thanks.
Thanks.
Good evening, Terry Scott, 180 Southwest 3rd Avenue. Mary, you said it, that you stayed the course 16 years. And before that, you was in the same audience fighting for the right of the people out west. And then you were elected and you stayed that commission 8 years. Then you came on and became mayor, but now going on 8 years. And I think that should be what everybody else does. Stay those 8 years. After that, if you see where you could give more benefits to this city, then run for mayor. I think it would help all of us out. Because we don't need God sitting up here. We don't need kings and queens sitting up here. We start spending too much time, we're going to take ownership. And we, the people, still own Deerfield Beach. I'm so glad to come from one of those families that's been here over 110 years. So I can truly say that I would love it. We just keep it. And I believe Felicia asked the question that, could somebody else do what ones are doing on the MPO? I think yes. As you all was taught, others can be taught. I think we have a right to make sure that the residents get proper information. And if you educate your district. I believe we will come out with quality, leading the charge. All it takes is some education. All it takes is you giving the people what is given unto you. Even for tonight's meeting, this thing come out the correct way. So how will the voters be educated on this when we don't have proper information on it? We need to be educated. You know, tonight, look, we still in up and down on this because even the champion of it don't have it all to give to the people. And we do need some part of education on this totality. You're talking about bringing 4 more years. Why? It's one of the biggest questions. And I did hear someone say, yes, it's not broken. Why are we gonna fix it now? So we can set up and look like they're doing things illegal? We gotta look at it. Look at it. And look at it in good fashion. Thank you.
Good evening. Diane Chisholm, 375 Northwest 7th Court, Deerfield Beach. I'm really for the voters. I am not against any plan that's designed to specifically help any individual. Because in my world, what I do is I ask the employees, everyone in their own specific places, write your task so that if you were hit by a car tomorrow, anyone could pick up your task and try and find their way. So that may be something that we want to do, is just write the things down that's super important to us so that we can pass them on. And I would also like to think that in this beautiful city of Deerfield Beach, do you really need a title to continue to help this city? If there was someone that wasn't in the chair this time and your fellow man, a woman, were to come about and sit in your position and these beautiful meetings are held, and I know all about the sunshine and you can't talk here and you can't talk there, but when you're in the public, you can talk to anyone you want. So I would think that if there is someone to get put in a specific seat, because we love the city that we live in, and we will do whatever it takes to continue to make the city function, I would like to recommend that we volunteer our services and help those who are in the chair that may not have been there the last time. I am totally against making term limits that specifically is designed to help any 1 or 2 individuals, or even 3. I think that the system that we have now works, but I do agree with Terry that education, I think, is the thing that's missing here. And I would like to ask our dais if there's something we can do to help educate our communities. I think that would be extremely beneficial. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Ms. Chisholm?
Yes.
You signed the petition, you're the number 5 person on here, including someone else in your household,
Absolutely.
saying that you were for this.
Absolutely, no. I wanted to say that to start out. You're absolutely right when you made the comment in the beginning that there are people who sign petitions that don't know what they're even signing. What I was told when I signed that petition is that we would like to have the city know that we want to have a vote and whether or not we want this petition.
What do you think we're deciding on right now?
What do
That's
I think
we're
you're
doing.
deciding?
That's what we're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry then.
The commission is not voting themselves an extra term.
Okay, now that's what I
happens
was
when
under.
people listen to Facebook and people that don't know what they're talking about.
Well, this is what I was going to say to you. One of the things was that people do sign petitions when they are misled at times,
Right.
or maybe just not understanding. But I am definitely for the voters speaking as to what it is that they want. So that clarification is well made. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so everybody's clear, the commission is not voting to give themselves another term. It's that simple. I think, quite frankly, I think we'd all, the 3 of us should abstain if that was the issue. This is about giving the voters, I think what's being presented is to give the voters the right to vote on it through referendum, and if they want to change it. It's not the commission. I don't care what anyone tells you that, they're flat out uninformed. The commission does not have the ability to change the charter, to do that. We didn't have the ability to change the charter on a myriad of things that were decided back in 2006. We don't have the ability to do that now. It's that simple. The only people that can are you. That's it. Us, as a group, as a community, we all get to vote on it. So just in case there's someone else who's going to come up here and speak, I'm not embarrassing Ms. Chisholm at all. It's about this. I don't mean to if I did, certainly, but I did notice your name on here, so I was a little confused. And it's very clear what you signed, so that's why I was confused. But we are not voting to do that, despite what anyone else says. That's not the case. Mr. City Attorney, is that accurate?
Correct. The commission does not have that authority.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pam Cantor, 4041 J.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Certainly.
Mike?
I can take
You
this
can
down.
drop your mask.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Pam Cantor, 4041 Lyndhurst J. I strongly believe it's up to the voters to decide this matter, not the politicians. Many neighboring cities have 3-term lengths. I want it to be so that the people will be able to vote on this change in the city charter. Please put this proposal on the ballot, whether you like the idea or not. Let the voters make the decision on the term rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
May Francis Aiden, 3500 Northwest, Southwest Latour Boulevard, Deerfield Beach. I'm totally against what you're speaking about. Every frog, my mother always told me, every frog prays his own pond, meaning that when you think you're the special one, all of us have the ability to learn. Maybe some learn differently, but we all have the ability to learn. As for my family's been in the city of Deerfield since 1927, right there on 10th Street, until the city and DOT decided they wanted our property. So with that being said, we have the ability to learn. A lot of us have been here. We have been here. We're not transported here. We were here. We have helped to build this city. And Deerfield is unique. We have had integration, when immigration come up along, we had whites and blacks living on the other side of the railroad tracks as well, so on this side, southwest side. So Deerfield is unique and different. So we thank you, and we do not want, we want the ability to do what is right. They have the ability to vote for what we want and see right for our community.
Anyone else in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Daryl Brown, 262 Farnham K, Deerfield. Overall, I have my own opinion, but listening to what everybody said while sitting here, I see both sides. But I look at the bottom line for me. The bottom line is giving the choice to the voters. And in the long run, the voters will decide whether they want to extend term limits to a third term or keep it as is to 2 terms. But it goes initially to the voters if it's put on a ballot come November. And I think whatever answer we come up with, that'll be that will tell us right there if it should stay or should it be extended to a third term. And I'd like it to be put on the ballot. Thank you.
No, ma'am, we'll let somebody else go ahead.
Chris Marino, 1525 Southeast 14th Court. The proposed limit, just to clarify, are we talking about a third term only?
Third term.
Only a third term. Okay. So I'm a younger person than the average Century Village age, but I'm here because I care too. As far as the voters are concerned, I feel our voters in Deerfield Beach have made a decision on this subject in 2006, and we paid for it at that time, and we're about to pay for it again, $34,000 of our hard-earned city money. So I can't see spending the $34,000 expense for a decision that we've already made. If it's not broke, don't fix it approach, I take that here. And I do feel that an advisory board on the 10th Street project should be in place, and they can advise any new city officials going forward on that if we're properly placed an advisory board.
We have one that just shows that you have no clue what's going on over there. So we'll get you up to speed. But yeah, we've been doing that for 7+ years.
Well, or I echo,
4 years before he was in office.
I'm echoing what the other residents say, that advisory board can certainly.
Most of them are dead, but yes.
Well, there you go. Well, then if they're dead, is the board in place?
It was.
Okay, so we should have an advisory board in place to
We have
support
had
it.
one.
Okay, very good. All right. So for tonight, I'd be a no, and I support the decision that's already been made by previous residents.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else inside here? I have more online. Mr. Adams?
Yes, greetings. Deerfield residents overwhelmingly voted for term limits in 1993. According to then news reports, allegedly they were tired of the then mayor serving 12 years. The voters spoke in 1993. Then the so-called Dream Team were the first commission to serve on the term limits. Then in 1997, all 5 commissioners were re-elected. So now the second term is coming to a close in 2001. And here comes the excuses of whining about not wanting all the commissioners and their experience to leave office at one time and leaving the city in hands of newcomers. So then in 2001, the new con to sidestep term limits and circumvent the will of the voters was collecting petition signatures. These Deerfield politicians never play fair. So this new con lasted until 2006. Fast forward up to 2006, when the voters grew weary again and eliminated the exemption that allowed commissioners to sidestep term limits by collecting petition signatures. The voters also agreed to stagger terms. Now fast forward 12 years to 2021, and now term limited District 3 Commissioner Bernie Parnas asked the city attorney to draft an ordinance for the November 2022 ballot to change term limits again. Parnas was asked by Commissioner Drosky, can we ask your intent? Are you saying you want a charter change that would apply to me, you and the mayor? Yes, Parnas replied. The board has done a hell of a job. Voters have the right to say whether it's a good idea or not. The bullshit never changes here in Deerfield Beach. It just continues on.
Mr. Adams, you're better than that. Your language, I'm asking you to use better language.
It just continues on into a different decade. As I stated earlier, these Deerfield politicians never play fair. I remember Mayor Gantz once telling me when he was a commissioner around 10 years ago that being a commissioner or mayor is not a lifetime job. Finally, the optics doesn't look right. On the February 15th, 2022 lease discussion and vote, it seemed to me that Commissioner Parnas, Hudak, and Preston had the votes. And all of a sudden, it seems the mayor and Commissioner Drosky convinced Commissioner Parnas to switch his vote. Parnas abruptly changed his mind and said, as much as I like this project, I will change my vote. Let the people decide. Now, 2 weeks later, Commissioner Parnas' ordinance on term limits out of nowhere appears on the March 1st, 2022 agenda. It's always about optics and they look suspicious to me. Again, Franklin D. Roosevelt once said in politics, nothing happens by accident. It happens. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. I asked the commission to vote no for putting term limits on the ballot for a third time. The voters have spoken. Everyone keeps saying, let the voters speak.
Mr. Adams?
No, I can just give me a few more seconds. The voters have spoken in 1993 and 2006. Please respect it. And I'm sorry for BS. I was reading a letter. It had BS, not what I said. So excuse me for that. I am really sorry for
That's what
that.
happens. You read other people's words, it gets messed up there. So we'll stop.
And no, I'm reading my own words.
I know you're better on that, Mr. Adams. Thank you.
Thank
We have Katie Freitag.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, fellow constituents. Many people do not know that this was going to be on the agenda tonight. Bernie, Commissioner Parnas, if you had asked me on Saturday night, I would have signed your petition that I am against this choice. It was interesting when you came over to Ben Gwendolyn's ear about this, but it was funny that you didn't ask me. I'm not surprised that you had so many signatures on your petition because, of course, I'm sure you asked all of your friends. Excuse me, I lost my place for 1 second. We do not need additional terms for commissioners that are not attending all city events. We do not need terms for additional terms for commissioners who are voting on things for the entire city, but never leave their district. There's a reason for staggered terms so that not all 5 seats on the dais are replaced at the same time. I have a running joke with the city staff about where I park at city events. Everybody knows. If the projects that are not finished, such as Southwest 10th Street, which has been going on for years, why does the information disappear when the commissioner changes? That particular project has been going on for so many years that 2 terms, 3 terms is not going to make a difference. How much is this going to cost the city? And is this not monies that could be used in a much better area, such as our parks and recs, our streets, our substructures? Can we not spend that money better elsewhere? And just look at one particular person on the dais right now. Vice Mayor Ben Preston ran for office, was a commissioner, ran for office, lost the commission, came back and ran again and won it. It is possible to do that. And that is the reason that we have the staggered terms. It's the reason that we have the situation where you can come back and be commissioner again 4 years later. There's no reason to have 3 terms in a row. The election, this is the democracy that Deerfield has. It is what we need now, and it's what we need every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Gwen Clark-Reed.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Gwen Clark-Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. Term limits are put in for a specific reason. And I don't think that some of us are grasping exactly what is going to happen with these term limits. If you are going to say that the commissioners who are up for office in the next election will be able to establish another term, meaning that they would be there for 12 years, I don't think that's right. I think that we need to leave the term limits the way they are. 2 terms of 4 years is sufficient, I think, for any commissioner to get his or her job done. I want to hear, as Commissioner Drosky said, he hasn't heard from his constituents. I don't think any of the commissioners have really heard from their constituents about this, and they all need to hear from them. Commissioner Parnas, at this time, I cannot support your ordinance for putting it on the ballot. I want to hear what happens at the next meeting, at the second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, anyone else from the public? So a lot more people here that have not spoken. If I see you online speaking, you're not here, shame on you. Now's your opportunity. I'm gonna close it to the public. Commissioner Hudak and Commissioner Parnas.
I have a question for the city attorney, and maybe my information or how I'm reading the charters is inaccurate. From what I understand, a commissioner is allowed a term limit of 2 consecutive terms. Now, I believe if there is if you leave office and wait 4 years, you can run again. Is that accurate or not?
That is correct, Commissioner Hudak. The restriction is 8 consecutive years.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
But to your point, I could, when my term expires, I could run for District 4 for another 4 years. So it's a different term.
You as mayor, yeah, I think
Yes.
the charter,
It can happen.
right.
Not saying it is, because 16 years, I'm tired. It's exhausting. Yeah, but honestly, seriously, for those trying to say this is the way to stay in office, I can run again. I'll take on anybody. I'd love that. My God, I would love that. But I will tell you this. It'd be fun. We'd have a good time. But I will tell you this, when it comes to term limits like that, look, yeah, it rotates out. I'm jumping ahead, Commissioner Hudak, because I don't know if you had any other questions, because I think your question was answered, but I'm going to say this. I brought up 10th Street as an example. It's comical, I have to admit, and insulting for the people that have worked on that for so long to say, well, maybe we should have a committee. I'm not trying to say you intentionally did that. And I'm not singling individuals out. And they say, well, that knowledge can be transferred. 7 years from sitting in a meeting, when you've been to every single meeting that's been going on for 7 years, and I'm talking individual community meetings, small community meetings, putting together your own task force, sitting on an NPO task force for years, that knowledge certainly can be transferred. But it is not when you're standing in a room, you're having the wool pulled over your eyes by FDOT, and I can go back and say, wait a minute, you told us back here, I was in the room. That's a lot different than someone coming in and saying, well, I was told this. They're not going to know. Of course, information will be transferred. And some of us have been fighting it long before we were in office, while some of you were at home. We'll continue to do that. It's not, you don't invest 7 years of your life into a project like that and let it go to the wayside because you're out of office. It was merely meant to be an example of the lack of institutional knowledge that happens anywhere you're at. If you run a major company and you lose people that have been there for years, we lose one of our city employees been here for 30 years, they can tell you what has worked before, what has failed before, and what not to repeat. That happens. So before you try to make it out like 10th Street and there's a way to do it, it's not that simple, and let's not be parochial. There is a loss of knowledge. You can't make it an argument against that makes any sense without embarrassing yourself. So let's not make it that I'm trying to bring up 10th Street as the only thing. I just use that as an example. But back to the points on that. Certainly, we have the ability to transfer knowledge. We know that. We know that. Commissioner Hudak, did you want to complete your statements?
I did. I definitely want to complete my statements. What the public, when I got into office, the one thing that surprised me more than any is how few people in this city are actually engaged in our city. We have 87,000 residents, and there's probably less than 50 people who really take ownership of this city. And I'm talking about the people who are actually on this, in the city hall right now and on the Zoom right now. We have 87,000 people. And I would say that 40% of the people on this call are city staff, and the rest of the individuals are the residents who put forth the time and the energy to make this city run. And you don't understand the time commitment for the individuals on the dais, the passion that we have for this city. And the challenge that the city faces is to find replacements for us, because this isn't a job that you do, 3 hours on a Tuesday. This is a full-time job if you do it right. And yes, so residents may say, well, this commissioner doesn't go to that event or to this event, but that commissioner is also building relationships within the political community. We have Commissioner Mark Bogan here today, and he's here because one of our commissioners has a relationship with him that he's built over the years. If that commissioner leaves, he can pass all the knowledge he wants on to the new commissioner. But it's the relationships that we build based on the hours that we put forth for this job, for this community, and for this city. And that's something that is missing in this whole dialogue. The other thing that's missing is we're elected officials. We don't appoint ourselves. So if we're not doing a good job, our residents can vote us out. It's not like this is a king or a dictator like you've got in other countries that are invading Ukraine. We are elected officials. And if we're not doing a good job, if you're not happy with the job that we're doing, guess what? In 4 years, we're gone and you've got a new individual. And what this proposal is asking is to give it the right of the voters to see if you want to keep the individuals who have put the time forth, who have the knowledge and have the passion for this city an extra 4 years. And that's what you have to think about. And if you really don't want to do that, then step up to the plate and run for office. You'll find it's not as easy as you think. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Parnas.
Thank you. Let me say something from what I've heard from a lot of the people that spoke that are against this. The people spoke. Well, the people spoke when we wrote the original charter. Why did we change it and put term limits in? You say, oh, the charters, why change it? They changed it. Why did they change it? Because the voters decided they wanted to. That was what, 14 years ago? Times changed. Why do most of the cities, 2/3 of all the cities in Broward, either have no term limits or 3? Ask yourself that, because the voters in those cities decided it was a good idea. I'm not telling you whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. We are still a democracy. This is something the voters should decide. All I'm asking is put it on the ballot, let the voters speak. What is wrong with having the voters speak? Now,
there's an echo out there. It needs to stop, please.
Second, I hear, well, it's a dynasty. Well, let me tell you, 3 of the 5 of us sitting here had to beat incumbents in order to get here. So much for dynasties. Ben Preston beat Gloria Battle. You beat Gene Robb. Am I correct?
No, time.
Huh?
Timed it.
You timed it. Okay. I beat Richard Rosenzweig, not once, but twice. They were incumbents. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee if I ran for 3rd term, and I haven't made a decision. I'm not a kid. How's my health going to be in 3 years? How's my mental ability going to be in 3 years? I don't have an answer. But if I am healthy and my voters in my district want me to run for a 3rd term, the voters should make that decision, not politicians. All we're asking to do is put it on the ballot and let the voters decide. What is wrong with that? If it's not broke, don't fix it. No, it's giving the voters the opportunity to voice what they want, not what we want, what they want. Nobody here has told me what's wrong with that idea of bringing an item in front of the voters for their decision. That's all this says, is to put it on the ballot, let the voters decide. In a democracy, that's how it's done. In a dictatorship, that's not how it's done. I don't think we've become a dictatorship yet. And people say, well, we're going to change it. If we never changed the charter, there'd be no term limits. Because in the original charter, there wasn't any. How did we get term limits? The voters decided on. How did we stagger the elections so all 5 didn't disappear in one shot? The voters decided that. So the charter's been changed many times with the times. As we go on over the years, there will be changes to the charter. This is one that the public will either say, I like the idea, or I don't want the idea. So what I'm asking this commission to do is to move this forward and let you, the public, decide. It's not decided tonight. We're not voting on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, whether 10th Street will carry on or not carry on. If 3 of us leave at one time, probably in 3 years, our budget will be around 250 million, and we'll probably have over 90,000 residents in Deerfield. I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea that 60% of this commission is gone in one day. Gone. And if the voters agree with that, they don't, at the present rate, they don't have an opportunity to say, we'd like to keep that commission at least for a while. They don't have that opportunity now. Yet 2 of them ran unopposed. Nobody dared run against Bill or Todd Grotzky because they knew they couldn't win. So they didn't even try because they've done a good job. Who decided that? Not Bill, not Todd, the voters. Think about that. Think about the opportunity for you, the voters, to make a decision as to the charter and how many terms this commission can have. And there's no guarantees. That's what people don't understand. Let's assume I wanted to run for a 3rd term. Some bright young star comes along and beats me. Happens all the time. What if I decide not to run? Because of my age, my health? It doesn't affect anything. But if I'm healthy and want to run, I'm saying, let the voters decide yes or no. Put it on the ballot, let the voters vote, period. This is too important to say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, it was broke because the charter's been changed more than once. So why can't it be changed again if the voters want it to change? If they don't want it changed, they'll vote to keep it the way it is. But I'll sleep better at night knowing that the voters decided this, not this commission. The only way this commission can stop you from voting on it is by not allowing it on the ballot, by voting no. I say, let the voters decide. And Ben, incidentally, 50% of the names I turned in out of the 168 happen to come from District 2. Because in talking to some people, they said, I'd like to go out and canvass our neighborhood. And they got yeses. They didn't have any no's. People said, let the voters decide. My district as well. So what is the problem with letting voters make the decision? $34,000? It's less than $1 a voter. Are voters not worth that? To give them the opportunity to tell us which direction to take? Again, we have over 49,000 voters in Deerfield. The cost is $34,000 to put it on the November ballot. Now, people ask, why the November ballot? I'll give you a reason. If we put it on the primary ballot, of course, it'd probably be the same, except independent voters don't get to vote. Non-party affiliates don't get to vote in primaries. So more than half the city wouldn't be able to vote. If we waited to March, it's very expensive. Why? Because next March, 2 districts are voted on, not the whole city. But this is an item for the whole city. So we'd have to pay to open all the precincts in the city to allow everybody to vote, with a cost of over $130,000. But if we put it on the November ballot, the whole city's covered, every precinct is covered, and it should be a decent turnout because there's a fight for Senate, the governor, Congress, and it's the cheapest way to do it. What I'm asking you to do is put it on the ballot and let the voters speak. That's what makes America great, the ability to vote. You can vote yes, you can vote no, or you can stay home. Those are your three choices. I'm asking this commission give you that choice.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Preston.
You said, Commissioner, that a lot of my district candidates and a lot of people was in support of this. But let me also tell you that people that did call me were not in support of it. That's one. And two, I got calls from other districts as well that was not in support of this. Now, let me say this. The Constitution of the United States has been amended. The Constitution of the United States is what we live by. That's what makes us who we are. It's what defines us. And there were times that it had to be amended. But you know when that happened? It's when they saw a problem. It was the Constitution itself was unfairly hurting its own, discriminating against its own. And so people that were in office saw a need to be able to amend the Constitution of the United States, and they did so. I've heard here so many people say tonight, let the people decide. Let the people decide. Well, are we going to move past that? Because the people have already decided. We would first have to say the reason that that needs to go on the ballot, and I have no problem with that if there was a problem. What's the problem? Just the fact that we can say put it on the ballot so the people can vote on it? That is, at that point, politicians tinkering with it. We're playing with it at that moment, and we don't need to do that. This is a solution searching for a problem. There is no problem. Leave it alone. If there was really some sort of an issue where there was some sort of isolation and people were pouring out and saying, hey, we need to move on this, then I would say, this is something we got to look at. But what's the problem? It's just that you are saying that let's put it on the ballot and let people decide. Other than you saying that, what's the problem? Okay, what's the problem?
In a moment.
Okay, there have not been an outcry from the public to say the way that our charter reads now, there is a distinct problem and that warrants change. There is no problem. There's been no outcry from the public. This was brought up by a commissioner. Nobody from the that I was contacted said that's a problem and we need to address it. This is actually politicians looking at it and saying, let the people decide. But the people already decided. And it's been moving, and it's been moving in a positive manner. If there was an issue that needs to really be discussed, we as elected officials ought to be able to look at those kinds of things. But when we say let the people decide, we're actually stepping over the main fact, and that is that the people have already decided. That's a fact. The people have already decided.
Look at this. Yeah, let's not tell you. I think that's part of the problem.
One of the problems that I see, and there's a possibility that in 2025, 3 of the commissioners are term limited. The other 2 could be beaten in an election. Now you got a whole new board with a $250 million budget and no knowledge. It takes a year for some of these people to find a men's room in City Hall. Some people ran for one term and the voters said, what a mistake, and they threw them out. but somebody new. And as far as the Constitution of the United States, if I recall, amendments are decided by Congress, and then the states legislatures, not the people, the states legislatures confirm it by a 2/3 vote of their own legislature to ratify it. The people don't get to vote on constitutional amendments in the United States. But here we have an opportunity to let the people decide whether they want to change or not. Is there a need? We could have gone back to the original and had no term limits. Why did we change the charter then? What was the need? What was the absolute need for them to change the charter? They made a decision. The people made a decision to change it. And I'm asking to let the people decide whether they want to change it. Period. That's a democracy. Let the people decide. People say, well, I'm for it, I'm against it. Against what? Against giving it to the voters to vote on? That's all we're deciding here. Whether or not they should have the opportunity to say yes or no. Then if we pass this, we got until November to sell your, I'm against it because, or mine, I'm for it because, and then the voters make a decision. What is wrong with democracy? That's how it works, and that's what I'm for. I'm sorry. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It wasn't broke in the first place, but we fixed it because the voters changed it. There was a time when women couldn't vote in this country. They can now.
Please stop. Thank you.
I'm all for letting the people vote on changing the charter or not. That'll happen with the merits, not because of me or you or Bill or Todd or Mike. On the merits of whether or not the public wants to allow a good commissioner or mayor to have a third term, not unlimited like 10 of the cities in Broward County, and the other 10 have 3 terms. 20 out of the 31 have 3 or more terms. Are they all wrong? I don't think so. I think they, the public, have a right to make that decision, not us. I can live with whatever they decide. If they decide 2 terms, that's it, throw them out, fine. But this is 2022. I want to see the voters do it. I want to see the voters have an opportunity to be sold yes or no and go to the ballot box and give their opinion. Because that to me is what counts, the voters. I'm not afraid of the voters. I applaud those who come and vote. In fact, I've set up a voter registration drive. In fact, you and I discussed it. It's being done in your district as well as mine to get people to vote. No, Ben, vote. So I am all for the voters. And that's all this is, an opportunity for the voters to speak. If I'm off base, the voters will vote no. And if the voters think it's a good idea, it'll be yes. And it has nothing to do with any individual wanting to run for a 3rd term or not running for a 3rd term. And even if you do run for a 3rd term, you can be beat. You beat somebody, I beat somebody when we ran. Why? Because the voters made that decision, no politicians, the voters. They put us in office. And this is an issue that belongs to them. That's my feeling. What am I asking you to do? Let the voters have a say. I could go out and get another 500 signatures. You know what? Don't mean squat. When election comes, Those that feel passionate enough to take up the issue will either vote yes or no. I want to give them that opportunity. And that's what I'm asking this commission to do. Give the voters the opportunity to say yes or no on changing the charter to allow for a third term. Period. No politics involved. You don't know if you're going to run for another term. I don't know at this point, 3 years from now, if I'm going to run again. Who knows if I'll be alive in 3 years? I can't think that far ahead at my age. But I want them to have that opportunity because we have a lot of younger members on this commission. And if they do a good job and the voters would like them to have one more term, I think they should have a say whether it's possible or not. What's wrong with that idea? What is wrong with letting the voters make a decision? Giving them an opportunity to study the issue and say, good idea, bad idea. What's wrong with that? We do the same thing here as a commission. And I heard the person said, well, I changed my mind. Yes, I did. Why? Because under the sunshine law, the 5 of us can't individually. I couldn't talk to Bill about why he thought it was a bad idea. And I couldn't talk to Todd who thought we could do better until we were here at the commission. I was all set to vote for it. Now I'll tell you something I told Bill. The next day after we voted, I got a call from a developer. She said, wouldn't it be nice if the referendum said we could sell the land and I put up a 20-story Marriott Hotel resort on that property? Wouldn't that be nice? Gee whiz. They're willing to bid on that land and do something that'll bring us taxes for 50 years or 80 years instead of $1 a year for 80 years and $3 million up front. When I went home after that Wednesday morning, when I got a call from the developer, I said, you know what? Voting no was the right idea for me. Bill and Todd convinced me here that that wasn't the best deal for the city. I could be wrong, I could be right, but that's how I felt. And that's the difference. We vote our conscience. We vote what we feel is best for the city. They should have the same rights. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for you to push this along, let the voters decide. And I agree with Todd. I will withdraw putting it on the agenda until the following meeting in April, so you have a chance to really talk to your constituents. And I can talk to mine. And so can everybody else to get a consensus before the final vote. I'm not asking you to approve 3 terms or take away terms or no terms. I'm just asking you to let the people decide. Put it on the ballot. Let's hear what they have to say. And why am I confident? The people that came here tonight spoke. Most of them were for it. A few were against it. We're not taking a poll here. It doesn't mean anything until it goes to the ballot. But they thought enough to come here and speak, both for and against. With that, there's nobody else. I'll put a motion on the floor.
I want to respond.
Go ahead, please do.
No, I'm going to ask the mayor, not you. Mayor, is it okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. First of all, you know, Commissioner, you're wrong in saying that the people don't get a chance to amend the Constitution. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic.
Yes, I know.
Okay, you said a democracy. But anyway, we're not going to get caught up on certain words. The republic meaning that you have elected people that you can go to be your representative. That's what that is. And many of the things that have been amended in the Constitution started from the people who told their representative, this is what we want, or this is wrong. It goes up the ladder until it gets to the Congress, and then if it's approved in the House, it goes to the Senate, and if it comes out of the Senate as approved, then there's a bill. That's how the process works. So it's inaccurate to say that the people don't have a say in what happens in the Constitution. Simply not true. The people have a say. That's what makes America different, it's the people who decide these issues. You don't have a bunch of congressmen and senators up there making laws and doing things without consulting the people. That's almost a dictatorship, or some form of it. The people in this country have elected officials, and those elected officials in the republic has to answer to the concerns of their constituents. And that's how it works in this process. Again, you said you want the people to, to have a say on this, and you want them to vote on it. My issue is that this has already been in place. We don't have a problem. Give me a problem. Show me what's going wrong. Why should we change it? And you still have not provided an answer for that. Other than you want the people to be able to vote on it. This is politicians tinkering with something that maybe I don't like it. And if I could get people to go along with it, now I can change it. If there's a real problem, something that's not working for the people, something that is just, as far as our charter is concerned, just not right. It affects one group, the way that we do it, disproportionately to one group than another. But this is a process that right now, 8 years, it's working. It's working. And I don't think anybody wants, you look at this commission, and there is an argument to be made that this commission has been progressive. It has done some very good things. And, the city of Deerfield Beach is better off. There's no doubt about that. But just how we grew and the way that we grew, and we did things for the city, other people can do the same things. We're not unique in that. And the minute we began to over-exaggerate our own importance to something is where we start to fail. We're not that important. We're just people that came to office and were serving, and actually in reality, that's all that we are. We're not geniuses. We're not these awesome people. We're just simply servants. That's it. And just as we are servants, there are other people out there that can do a good job just like we've done. There is no problem with the current method. Okay, so the modus operandi for change, I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think that sometimes when we say that the public, you got guys that are, we got a big budget. And you made an allusion to that. A big budget, and, all of us, I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot that I know about it, but when I don't, when I have questions, you know what I do? I call the city manager. I call the finance officer. And I tell you, they would do the same thing. Okay? They would do the same thing. And I think it's not a good idea for us to put ourselves in a position where we speak down to the people. That's kind of our tutoring. We got to make sure that they are included in the process. And they're just as good as we are. They're just as good as we are. And that must be interpreted as such that they know that these guys are serving. I guarantee that most of the people out here will say that we've done a great job. There's no doubt about it. But do we need to go to 12 years? I think not.
Why not be restricted to 4 then?
Because listen, we have to have some sensibility, sir. We have to have some sensibility. For 4 years is simply not enough. Our president, the president of the United States, is given 4 years, and if he does a good enough job, he gets 8. But he's not like Putin or the leader from China, where you just get to serve and serve and serve. You give the American president's got 8 years to make his case. That's it.
How about Congress? How many years can a congressman run?
If you're in the House too.
Excuse me, not the state, federal. None. They can run forever.
Well, we're not talking about term limit, there's term limits here. No one's talking about eliminating term limits. You're talking about extending term.
One
And let's
term,
keep
right.
that within the context of
The
what we're
Senate,
talking
the
about.
US Senate is the same with no term limits. So, you know,
I think we're better served sticking to the points of the argument here as far as getting on sidetracked on it.
yeah,
I'm going to say this, if this moves forward, then I ask for two things to be put forward. That one, if you're going to add a third, that you eliminate the possibility, because really, quite frankly, there is a scenario in which there are no term limits. I can run again for District 4 when I'm done. You could run for mayor.
I could.
And if you go back to district, it's that cycle. If you're going to move this forward and allow the voters to have a say on it, let them have a say on that loophole that's there. It's not necessarily a problem that exists right now, or necessarily a problem. I think as elected officials, we do have the ability, we should have the ability to go back and look at something and say, you know what, that probably needs to be adjusted. And I think that was a miss that was put in when the charter was changed that shouldn't allow someone, as Mr. Adams talked about, and I believe, is that these positions up here should not be lifetime positions. And I think there is a loophole in our that exists that, you know, you've got 16 years of consecutive service, potentially, and that's it. You have to sit out a session before you come back in. Because otherwise you just have to sit and sleep. And that affects me directly. But, and this doesn't. Because quite frankly, if I'm not mayor after this, if I decide I want to run for office, and I'll go for District 4. And I'm following the charter, that's exactly the way it could be. Like I said, 16 years is a really long time to sit up here. And I'm not even at 16 years yet. When I'm done, it'll be 16 years. It's a long time. And I don't see myself going on beyond that. But I have no issue with us asking the public, is this what you want? And giving them the ability to vote on it. I have a problem with paying $34,000 to ask that question. That's my issue. Now, when we voted for the fire department to merge with the BSO, and that was a decision made by the commission, not by the voters. That was by the commission, because that's what we were allowed to do. I voted against that initially when it said to move that forward, because I felt the public had already spoken on that issue, and that wasn't true to the intent of what we wanted. Eventually, I voted for the merger, but to even have that as a question for us to vote on, I voted against it because I felt the voters had already done. I lost that vote, so you have to vote on the next decision, which was whether we merge or not. But to even get to that point, I voted against it because the voters had made a decision. But the voters had made that decision less than 8 years before that. To me, that's too soon to go back to the voters to ask how they felt. They made it very clear. Looking at this and realizing it's been 2006, you know, it doesn't say it's been 16 years since it was changed. If we're going to spend $34,000 to ask the voters if this is what they want, and I don't believe it's what they want, but I will say, if you listen to the debate here tonight, I'm surprised. I didn't expect it to be as close as it was. And I look at this right here, and I look at the numbers. It tells me that maybe I'm missing something on this, and to let the voters decide. It's not something that, you know, if you're going to say, well, it's going to benefit you, you're going to sit up here. Well, look, I can keep running for office if I want the way the charter is now. That's not what the intent is, and that's not, I think, what the voters initially intended. This was set up for the elected officials to word all of the language. So if we're going to move this forward and ask the public, and if we go forward with what Commissioner Krosky and Commissioner Parnas has asked to move it forward, I'm going to insist that we add on there that we rectify something that is wrong with the charter and let the voters decide on it. If they want that loophole in there, allow something just continually sit in the cycle instead. I think that needs to be adjusted because that breaks away from the true intent of a term limit, which was supposed to be on.
Mayor, I like what you're saying, and I think that I personally could feel, at least evaluate this a bit differently. if the public was bringing this to this commission rather than a person sitting up here.
I agree.
Okay, so if the public was bringing this forward, I could look at it a little bit different. If this is brought forward, it should be brought forward by the people, not by a politician.
I agree with that. I do agree in that particular situation, certainly with this, and I think it probably puts certain, I'll speak for myself, it makes me uncomfortable deciding on this, but in the end, I'm not deciding on it if I go forward, because it's gonna be the people who voted. What I am deciding on is whether or not we spend $34,000 to do that. And if we do it, and if that's what the will of this commission is to allow the people to vote on it, I want the people to have the ability to vote to decide whether they want that in full of a rotating cycle.
I have no problem.
That to me would justify spending $34,000.
I have no problem with that. Not at all.
Commissioner Goudat?
This question is for city attorney. Do those have to be two separate items on the ballot? Because they aren't, or can they be incorporated into one?
Well, I have to prepare the language, but I would anticipate that you would have two separate ballot questions.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm figuring as well.
Yeah, it'd be a lot to pack into 75 words.
Which means it might not cost just $34,000. It'll be 42,000.
42 to do two.
Okay.
And then you have to go both.
I'm sorry.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I think Commissioner Parnas is going to make a motion.
Yes, I am. I make a motion, we approve this. For the
I'll second
reading.
that.
With the amendment.
Which would.
To fix the loophole.
Okay.
Can I just clarify your motion, please, Commissioner? So you're voting to approve this on first reading, and also, I guess, you direct the city attorney to prepare additional language with respect to the loophole issue that was mentioned by the mayor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And to set the second reading and the public hearing for April 5th.
Fine. No problem with that.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
No.
and Mayor Vance.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is item number 1 on the agenda. It's a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, accepting the unsolicited proposal from GK Innovations LLC for the purchase of city-owned vacant lot at 171 Southwest 3rd Street, Deerfield Beach, for $50,000, authorizing the sale of city-owned vacant lot, subject to conditions, providing for execution and effective date.
City manager, Mr. Power, in this meeting, or is he rushing the stage?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yes, Mr. Power does have a presentation for the second.
While Mr. Power is getting ready, sorry, Mr. Power. I just wanted to point out that pursuant to our code, this item would require a 4/5 vote for affirmative vote for adoption.
Thank you.
Good evening, Eric Power, Director of Planning Development Services, City of Deerfield Beach. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just begin a brief presentation, and I'd like to begin by explaining the actual code section that we're using tonight. This is actually the first time that the City Commission has seen an application for this code section since it was approved by Commission back on January 14, 2020. It was just before COVID. I remember none of us know what happened before COVID, so I just want to remind everyone. Essentially, what the code section does is it allows for the city to sell, lease, or give city-owned property under certain conditions. We have basically a threshold for something that's less than $750,000 and more than $750,000, and then unsolicited and solicited. So solicited would be the city, put out a call for someone who wants to purchase it. Unsolicited is we didn't ask the person, they submitted the application, got in for you tonight, it's unsolicited, right? So essentially what the requirements are for the application themselves, the application is filled out, a 5% deposit of the proposed purchase price is provided, the narrative indicating the intention, and an appraisal of the property. And then we are required as staff and review to determine if this piece of land is something that we are willing or able to sell or to lease or to give. We do an internal survey, we do public notices, and we also post in the newspaper for 2 consecutive months. So part of that as well is the city does an appraisal itself. You go to the next slide. And just a discussion of this particular property, which is again 171 Southwest 3rd Street. So the applicant did submit back in November. They are proposing to construct one single-family home on this lot, and it is adjacent to a parcel that the applicant already owns, in which he has already received a building permit to construct one single-family home on that adjacent lot. So essentially, he is going to construct 2 single-family homes on these 2 vacant adjacent lots to each other. The applicant did propose a purchase price of $50,000 in a negotiation with the applicant. We requested he pay $6,500, which is what the city's appraisal of the value was, which the applicant agreed to. The proposed appraisal for his review was $75,000. Ours was a little bit less. And I just want to point out that in addition to the proposed price of the lot, the applicant's also responsible for paying for, building permit fees, engineering fees, impact fees, and things of that nature, which could, total to around $20,000. And of course, because this was city property in which no tax was given because it was owned by the city, now that a home was built, property taxes will therefore incur on the city, probably starting next year. And that, of course, will be in perpetuity as long as there's a home on the property. And those assessed values for that first year is somewhere to be, $2,500, around $3,000, depending on how those taxes work for next year. So the next slide. This is the point that the property owner is really going to be paying more to the city than what the purchase price is going to be. And in reality, the purchase of the development property and the fact that the city will receive income afterwards in the form of taxes. This is just a scan shot of where the location is. You can see it's south of Hillsborough, west of Basic Highway, east of Southwest 3rd. Just go to the next slide real quick. Just a little bit further in, you can see that's the vacant property. If you look just to the right of the vacant property, that's the property that the gentleman already owns, in which they're both constructing single homes. And I think with that, that's the last slide. And I'm happy to answer your questions. We have to answer your
Yes, I have a question. Would you like That's okay. I'm not hard, with everything here. It's okay. See, well, I still have Commissioner Hudak's hand raised. That's all right. Okay, if you will make sure it's okay, man. Commissioner Hudak, did you want to speak on the side?
I did. So what happens if this individual just leaves it as a vacant lot, fences it in, and it's for his dog?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hudak. So the application, the resolution that we provided does have a reverter clause. So essentially, he has 12 months to obtain a building permit, and 18 months to actually receive a CO. And in that process, he does have the ability to request additional time if he's working on the permit or it's active or something like that nature. But as I've already spoken to the applicant, he already has a building permit that was approved for the adjacent lot, and he's been using the same building plans to get another lot. It should actually be very quick for him to receive a building permit.
And if he doesn't say what he's going to do, what happens?
Then after the end of that time period, then the land will go back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
The
applicant, were there other people that applied for this other than he?
No, during the public notice process, the city did receive a few inquiries about the notification and exactly what was being requested, but we received no additional action.
And was it the information to apply
Was that available to everyone?
Yes, well, our application is available on the website, and people who did inquire were directed to the website.
Any other commission comments before I open it to the public? Not seeing any, I'm going to close it. Well, close it, open it to the public. Wait, Clark Reed.
Yes, Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way, Deerfield. If the property was appraised at 56.5, why did we sell it for 50?
We're not.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
The presentation is said that they've agreed to pay the amount of the appraisal.
So just to clarify, the appraisal that the city conducted, of course, didn't occur until after the application was submitted. So the application from the applicant was $50,000. When the city received the appraisal that was slightly higher, you know, in speaking to the applicant, he agreed to pay that difference.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Kitty Freitag?
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street. I have two questions. One, how did the city come to own this property? And two, who owns the property next to it? On the other side, the other vacant lot. Is that not something, is that also owned by the city or is that owned by somebody else? And if it's owned by the city, would it not behoove us to sell both lots together as a combined bigger package instead of individually? Thank you.
Could I go back to the previous slide that showed the aerial?
Yes, please take it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Heather, go back to that last slide. To answer the first question, part of the notification process is that all the adjacent property owners are notified by mail of intention to sell the lot. I believe, sorry, when you had it there. So I believe the lot that Ms. Freitag was referring to was the vacant land to the right. As I was just stating that the applicant purchased that property last year and already has received a building permit to build one single family home on that lot. So that's what both the vacant lots. Who was both the question?
Yes, I believe that was the question. Do you have any other questions? I think that is no. Anyone else from the public here to speak? I do see our city attorney would like to speak.
If there's nobody else from the public, Mayor.
I don't see who right in on this. Okay.
Okay, great.
I'm closest to the public.
I was just going to suggest, because it hasn't made it into the resolution, the updated figure, that if the commission is desirous of approving the purchase, that in the motion, you state the purchase price of $56,500.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not what's written on the paper, but it is what Mr. Powers said in his presentation. So no one else came forward. I'm surprised because I heard there was chatter and suddenly people became interested in this. People that I don't even think had a plan for it, which is part of the reason why I think we have this program in place, right?
That is correct. That the applicant is vetted through the staff process to determine what they're going to be building for the property that's compatible for the land, that it meets the requirements of the city.
Right. So the purpose of this, the reason why we have this before is because we have odd parcels of land. As far as how that parcel of land came into city possession, I don't know if we have the history of that.
That was the other question. I apologize. I don't know if I have a clear history of it, but I believe the property was deeded to us. Most likely, the property had been condemned for some reason, taxes weren't paid, and then the property reverts basically to the city.
Right. So the point of this is when we have these smaller parcels of land, which every city does, is how do we turn that into something that can enter on the tax roll? Certainly that property is not something we can use as a park. It's not something we can use for public facility that would make sense based on its size. But the whole goal of this program that we have in place, and credit to our staff putting this together, we've had for a little while. I think this is the first one that's done.
This is the first one
under this program. So it allows for someone who actually owns the property next to it to maybe utilize that property to give us a bigger bang for their buck, a bigger bang for the taxpayers' buck when they have to do that. And it prevents knuckleheads from the outside, like I've heard chatter about, that want to come forward and say, "Oh, I'm interested." no plan, no idea what they want to do, but they just want to buy a piece of property and sit on it and basically stymie progress. And I think they have the ability to do that, but they also have to meet a certain criteria. Is that correct?
It is correct. And so again, as this is an unsolicited proposal, you know, the process for public notification, which clearly works because we did receive, inquiries, they would be allowed to submit an application, essentially show what their plan would be. And then we would actually treat that the same way we would treat a solicited proposal, like an RFP, which presentations we made to the commission for whoever submitted an application.
Okay, so we've only received this one. Right. We have the ability to, on the lot that they own, right next to adjacent to it, they want to make a bigger parcel.
No, they want to build, I'm sorry, two single family homes.
2 single family homes on it. Okay. So that's the best way for us to utilize that space. Yes. Okay. Commissioner Parnas?
Motion to approve.
Is that with the purchase price of $56,500?
$56,500.
Thank you.
Second,
We have a second from Commissioner Hudak. Motion made by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
We are now at the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for an additional minute by the mayor. This is for public comment on items that are not on the agenda tonight. The time for public comment on an item that is on the agenda is after the item is read into the record and public comment period is open for that item. And a reminder, no comment shall be made related to the personal life, personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons' ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted.
Anyone from the public care comment? Unfortunately, written in. Gwen Clark Reed. Gwen, you just need to unmute yourself.
There it is. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. Mayor, I would like for the water department, the billing department, as far as the utilities are concerned, that the way that bill is laid out, it's very confusing. I know it's confusing to me, and I heard other people have said that the billing is confusing to them when they're reading their bill. Can we simplify that process? I don't know, how other people feel about it, but I really would like someone to look at the way that bill is presented to you and look at possibly simplifying that the way it's laid out. That's the water bill. Okay, thank you.
Katie Freitag.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street. I just want to bring up a couple of events that have happened recently. First being Festival of Arts and Pioneer Days. I thought the combined event went great. And I appreciate the 3 commissioners and the mayor for coming out and supporting this event. It really went well, and I thought it was awesome. Saturday was another fabulous event, and the African American Heritage Board or Heritage Banquet was fabulous. I truly enjoyed meeting all the new people. I definitely think the way to go is quality events over quantity events. That should be the mantra of the city. I see David looking at me like, yes. Definitely the way to go. In addition, I have one request to the city, and I don't know if this is something that we can make happen, but I hope we can. A lot of people like myself buy the parking stickers every year. And some of us, like myself, who go down to the beach and walk in the mornings, are there earlier than 6 a.m. Is it possible to allow, I always start out down at Embassy Suites. Is it possible to open that particular parking lot to people that have stickers earlier than 6 a.m.? I have places to be by 6:30, 7 o'clock. I like to go in and get my miles done and get on the road. And if we could possibly open that parking lot, open at 5:30 for people like me who like to get out and walk the beach early with our parking passes. If we could do that and not be worried about getting a ticket every time we park there, I would appreciate it if something we can make that happen. And in addition to being a vendor of all, jack of all trades, a volunteer, I should say, I'm also a vendor of the city. And so often I hear throughout all the different departments how the city has no money for infrastructure management, infrastructure changes, things that need to be happening. But hey, if we've got money to spend on other things, then we've got money to spend on our infrastructure. So I'm hoping that the city will be looking at some of the projects that I've proposed through the different departments and see if we can't get some of these passed since we've got money to spend. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? I'm gonna close it to the public then. Ms. Freitag, rather than going to the department with a suggestion on how you think funding should go, you might want to go to your commission and ask how the tax dollars should go in that direction. And I am going to suggest to former Representative Reed that when it comes to the water bill, we have changed it several times. There are things by statute we have to have on there. If you have a suggestion on what is confusing, it's better for you to tell us what it is, as opposed to saying just take a look at it and try to simplify it, because it's a little too vague. So if you give us an idea of what you think is confusing, we'll see if we can make some adjustments to it. I think that might be a better way for the staff to approach this. Okay. Moving forward.
We are now at the consent portion of tonight's agenda, and currently items 2 through 5 are on consent.
Okay. Are there any polls for items 2 through 5? Bear with me a moment as I try to move around my screens. No polls for 2 through 5? You have one? Okay, so we'll poll number 2. Any other polls between 2 through 5? Anyone from the commission or anyone in the public would like to comment on items 2, 3, 4, or 5? No one on 2, 3, 4, or 5? Okay, anyone? We have hands up. Okay, let's just go ahead by each item then. All right.
Okay. Item number 2 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving a facility use agreement with Toastmasters International, doing business as Club Paradise Toastmasters 1567808 for public speaking leadership classes at the Hillsborough Community Center. Approving the waiver of facility use fees to support the training within the city, providing for execution, severability, and effective date.
Vice Mayor, you had a question on this?
Yes. I just want a little bit more clarification. Is there any opportunities for residents to take advantage of Toastmasters being in the city of Deerfield Beach, and we providing a waiver for them? I'd like some clarification on that.
Vice Mayor, there is definitely an opportunity for Deerfield Beach residents to participate in the program. In fact, the majority of those that do participate in it are Deerfield Beach residents. The costs involved with being in the program go to the International Toastmasters Association, as well as for the various speakers, materials, and resources that are needed in order to conduct the program. I don't know if we have the applicant here to speak more about those fees that are borne upon each participant, or the ability to waive those or reduce those for Deerfield Beach resident. But I suspect, based on past discussions and when this has been brought up to the commission before, that the answer is that the costs are the costs for what it is. It's not necessarily a moneymaker for anybody. It's just what they have to pay to contribute to participate in the program.
Anyone else from the commission before you open to the public?
Question. What are the fees involved that they want us to waive? How much are we talking about a week?
To address that question, Commissioner, there is no request for Well, let me clarify. They're asking for the rental fee of the facility to be waived.
And that rental fee is,
I'll need Ms. Renard to address that question for.
thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, Chair Grant, Parks and Recreation. I was so excited. I got halfway down here. So I'm glad you asked another question. They usually are there 2 hours at $25 an hour for 50 weeks. They take a couple weeks off during the year. So if my math's right, $2,500.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna open it to the public. Chris, we have you online.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, so just before I give my comment, I just want to say thank you
I need your
guys.
name and address for the record, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
That's what I thought. We may have lost them. Okay. Anyone else from the public care to comment? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public then, unless he comes back, which he is. Commission, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Preston, second by Mr. Hudak. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton.
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the expenditure in an amount not to exceed $100,000 with People Ready, Inc. for temporary staffing services for Department of Sustainable Management, providing an effective date.
Santucci, any comments?
Mayor, this item was on consent, so I don't know if it was specifically pulled by any one commissioner, but I'm happy to address any questions that the commission or the public may have.
Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? Not seeing any other closing to the public commission. Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner, Vice Mayor and Commissioner Parnas. We're gonna reopen it to the public on this item. Is everyone okay with that? Sure. Thank you. Ms. Clark Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. What positions are being filled by these employees? Or these people that are coming, what temporary positions?
Okay, do you have any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dresser.
Good evening, Chad Gressick, Director of Sustainable Management. So right now we have 6 vacant positions in the department that we cannot fill. We have been using People Ready since 2016. They have supplemented our city staff to do the bulk collection, and we are in dire need of that service.
My question would be, we're trying to staff these positions that are.
Correct. We cannot fill positions.
What we are trying.
Correct, absolutely.
If I may, Vice Mayor, they've been calling these times the Great Resignation. And in today's current labor market, we are having some difficulty filling various positions. The criticality of the operation that Mr. Gressick oversees, requires us to ensure that we have the staffing levels necessary to service the community. So this is a means to maintain that level of service until we are able to fill permanent positions, which we do pursue.
I'm just happy to know that you're trying to do that, because other than that, we'll really be struggling with this. But I understand what you understand.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Sorry, Commissioner. Parnas, your question.
So some of these people like drivers,
No,
they're inside positions?
no, these are helpers, so they'll help the driver.
Okay, they're on the truck.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Schleppers.
Okay. For a motion.
Motion to approve?
I'm sorry. Yes, I believe I closed it to the public. I'm sorry, I did not close it to the public.
There's a motion to approve.
Yeah, we have a motion by Commissioner Parnas,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Boudet,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Dan.
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the amended and restated Mission Square Retirement Governmental Money Purchase Plan adoption agreements for Retirement Plan 109050 and Plan number 106352, providing for execution, severability, and an effective date.
Is there anyone from the public who care to comment on this item? Not seeing any, I'm going to close it to the public. Commission.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Parnas.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Vice Mayor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Item number 5 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving an agreement with Robert Half International, Inc. for temporary staffing, direct hire, and other employer services in an amount not to exceed $160,000, utilizing the Houston Galveston Area Council of Governments Cooperative Purchasing Program Contract TS 06-21, providing for execution and an effective date.
Commission, any comments? Anyone from the public here to comment on this item? Gwen?
Thank you, Mayor. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. As I read the backup for this item, Mayor, I noticed that these positions are in finance. And are we not developing our own people in finance to be able to move up and be placed in some of these positions rather than going out with temporary positions? Finance is so important, and having stability in that department, I'm questioning it. So if Mr. Santucci can answer that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Let's see, we're closer to the public.
Motion to approve.
No, hold on one second. Can you do that, Mr. Santucci?
Thank you. And an excellent question. And the answer is yes. Yes, we do. We do look for staff development so that when the time comes, they are ready to move up into these positions. But currently, we're going through recruitment processes for one of these positions, and we'll follow it up with the second one after that. But these are temporary stopgap measures, again, as mentioned with the previous item, until these positions are filled, whether it is by somebody who has applied from within the organization or outside of it.
Okay. Thank you. Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Parnas, second by Vice Mayor Preston. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Boudet,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Dan.
Yes.
We are now at comments by administration and legal. I'll start tonight. I just have 2 comments. One, with respect to the charter amendment discussion we had tonight, I'm going to research this issue with the other ballot question that was raised. I just want to point out that it may require that we do another first reading for both of those items, given that the ordinance didn't contemplate the other question. But I will let you know that in short order, and I will look into that. So just heads up on that. And then the second item is a follow-up to a previous, I think, discussion that was brought before the commission regarding some of the legislative bills in the current 2022 legislative session. One of the items, I believe it was Commissioner Drosky who brought it up previously with respect to the sovereign immunity protection that the city is afforded. And this is with respect to claim like personal injury claims against the city, auto accident claims against the city. Right now, current state law provides that the city's exposure and liability in those cases is capped at $200,000 per person, $300,000 per incident. There was a House bill and a Senate bill filed on this issue. The Senate bill originally proposed to raise those caps to $1 million per person, $3 million per incident. The House bill version was $1 million per person and unlimited cap per incident. So a substantial dramatic increase in the city's potential liability exposure. So some good news, there has been some amendments to those bills as they currently stand today after going through the 3 committees. The Senate bill version is now down to, for a city like Deerfield Beach, over 50,000 population, 300,000 per claim, 400,000 per occurrence. The House bill version is 400,000 per claim, 600,000 per occurrence. So the Senate bill version is better currently for the city with respect to liability exposure for both the city and the taxpayers of the city. So just wanted to point that out. You may want to reach out in particular to your congressman to push for the Senate version. And I believe the Senate bill version is now being supported by the Florida League. So I just wanted to update you on that. Happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
I have lots, but we'll set it up on.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just 2 items for this evening. One, talking about 10th Street as we did earlier. Coming up on a future agenda item, what I would like to do is bring a letter before the City Commission that would be supported by resolution to urge and try to get the Florida Department of Transportation to provide us a decision related to some outstanding issues related to the project, in which they are looking for us to enter into certain agreements. These issues relate mainly to utility water lines, or more specifically, the unique opportunity for this project to include reclaimed water along the corridor, not only for the project, but for the region as well. There are landscaping considerations that I believe the City Commission should be aware of. Currently, 0.04% of the project cost has been dedicated to landscaping, whereas there is statutory language that speaks to amount up to 1.5% of the total contract or construction cost to be dedicated to landscaping. So there's the landscaping itself, the irrigation, and then of course the long-term landscaping requirements, and who will be responsible for that. So with those outstanding issues, there is also, we've learned more recently, now that the PD&E study is complete and they're looking at right-of-way acquisition, that the city stands to lose a substantial amount of private property that FDOT will need to acquire in order to do this project. That could amount to somewhere in the realm of $100,000. So these are the issues that I would like to formalize within a letter and bring that back before the City Commission. But as I'm drafting that, if there is any additional input from anyone, Commissioner, or even at this point, I definitely look forward to that input from you. And I'd like to bring that to you at a future commission meeting. The second thing is we are obviously still in a position of having 3 commissioners on the days and 2 remote, but we discussed that we would approach that topic every so often, and so I thought it'd be appropriate at this point in time to do that and just gauge the commission's will to bring back the dais in its entirety in person. So it's time to have that discussion as we had discussed doing this.
Okay. Commissioner Parnas?
Yeah, I feel this way. We can do one of 2 things. We can either bring back all 5 or assign 3. And if the other 2 want to come, fine. If they want to be Zoom, fine. They feel safer being Zoom. I personally would rather attend all the meetings. I think we have our glass here. We're protected from the public as well as each other. Overall, I don't see the harm anymore. My proposal is we you know, you can either have all 5 or assign 3, and if the other 2 want to come, that's fine. They don't, it can be by Zoom. That would be my proposal.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
It's a conversation that we can have with the next meeting. I don't think we need to decide right now. You know, talk about it. There's no rush to make a decision. While we think about it a little bit and see how we decide to approach this.
So we can give you a determination next meeting. Is that all right?
That's fine. So we'll just continue with the 3-2 schedule that we currently have in place today.
For the record, I'm good with having everybody back, but I like having you 2 there. Just because it gives us a little more space up here. So we get a lot of vehicles and stuff spread out. So, or at least one of you. I'm not sure which one, depends on who's going to be angry that day, I guess.
Are we gonna put it off or we can make a decision?
No, I respect my placements, whether or not we can talk about the next meeting, that's all right. We good with that?
I'm okay, but I would have liked to have shown up. In fact, I've been agreed to swap with him so that I can be here.
Today, let's still do it.
Okay, fine, I'll be here on the 15th.
If I may.
Discuss it then, thank you then.
If I may give a little input, I think we made a motion to have that second reading in April. So
Yes.
the reasons for, I think, Commissioner, that you wanted to be here for the 15th may not even exist, but I know that the city attorney may need to look at redoing a first reading. So once we work through that, I'll let you know and try to work through that with you.
Okay, fine. I personally would rather be here personally than on Zoom anytime I can. So if there's no restriction, I will be here, except if I'm not well and I want to Zoom. But I am definitely for, if the commissioner wants to be here, let him be. That's what we got this on. And the rate is down below 5% now, according to today's paper in Florida.
Okay, we can talk about it next meeting. Then.
Fine.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else?
Nothing from administration or legal. Commissioner comments.
Okay. Commission comments. Do you want to go first?
Okay, I don't care. I'll go first. Sure. People should be aware that after the November election, you have to re-register to vote. Our legislature in Tallahassee likes voter suppression. Your voting records will be wiped out after the November election, and you have to re-register. I have opened up a registration drive, both in District 2 and District 3, where I have people who have a card that you can fill out to check your present registration. You don't want to call up and wait on the phone. You can mail it in. Our people are not allowed to mail it in for you. We can help you fill out the card and then you have to mail it. It's postage free. You don't even need an envelope. It folds, it's got its own adhesive. You fill it out, drop it in the box. That'll correct any mistakes on your voter registration. However, as of the November election, everything is wiped out and you have to re-register with one of these forms or a regular registration form. Isn't that nice? Every 2 years, you have to re-register to vote. But that's the way it is. So I've opened 2 drives. I'm hoping to, if I can, open one in every district. It's very easy. The forms cost me 10 cents a piece. I just picked up 500 of them to help people vote. I feel that strongly about letting the people vote. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. District 3 is doing well. We're making a wonderful park in Century Village for the residents on the old golf course. And like any other neighborhood, it's no different. I know where a lot of old seniors living there, but we have crime just like everywhere else. Nothing changed neighborhoods and neighborhoods, good neighborhoods, bad neighborhoods, stuff happens all over, and you deal with it. As far as the city's concerned, I don't know anybody sitting up here that doesn't love the city. I'm here since 1989. My parents came here in 1974 when Century Village was built. I came down in 89 to help them. They were getting elderly and stayed. And I love this city. It's one of the best places I've ever lived. I love the beach. I love the pier. I like the fishing. I like golf. And I like serving the people. And it makes me want to get up every day and go to work. I'm not retired. I never will. I'll be doing something. If I'm not up here, I'll be down there busting good jobs. That's the way I am. So that's it in District 3.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll jump around to District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first comment I'd like to make is the March 15th meeting. I'd like to see if we can move it to the 14th. I have family members. My wife and kids are traveling on the 15th, and I'd like them to be there when I'm inducted as vice mayor. So if nobody has any conflicts, I'd like to make that motion to move it, the March 15th meeting to the March 14th.
I cannot attend that meeting.
Okay. So be it.
Sorry, but if
That's okay.
you don't do without me.
No, that's fine.
I know you have a thing, but I'm being elected to office in my Democratic club as president on the 14th. I think I should be there for the election.
No, that's quite all right. Earlier last week, I was fortunate enough to attend Deerfield Beach Middle School's reveal for the new Teachers Lounge that was erected by Deerfield Beach Cares and Kiwanis. And it was a tremendous event. And just people giving back to the people who give to our children. These teachers go through a lot, and especially the last 2 years, they've been through a lot. So to see what Deerfield Beach Cares and Kiwanis did for the Deerfield Beach Middle School teachers, I was very proud, and it was a very moving ceremony. So I just wanted to reach out and thank both organizations for everything that they do for our city. I also want to, we talked earlier about Pioneer Day and the Art Festival and how it was a tremendous weekend, from the parade all the way to the bonfire. But I want to make a special shout out to one individual that really made this happen. And she did it on one leg. The city has a great employee by the name of Elizabeth Ricci. And she coordinated both events with a torn ACL. And I just wanted to just, we have a lot of staff that really loves this city and goes above and beyond. And what the staff did to make those 2 days such successful, I just wanted to thank all staff, but especially wanted to thank Miss Ricci for all that she did. And the last thing I wanted to mention is I'm wearing this shirt and tie, not out of a coincidence, but for a reason. There are millions of people in Europe right now, in Ukraine, that are fighting to have a democratic government. Right now, as everybody's, I'm sure, aware, they are being invaded by the Russians. And so I just wore this just to show my support and have people realize that individuals in other countries are willing to die to have the type of government that we have. And, the United States does have its challenges, but we are still the greatest country in the world. And the world does aspire to be more like the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I did not have any planned comments for tonight until the city manager mentioned Southwest 10th Street. So I feel compelled to jump into that that fray. If you've been reading the information that we've been getting from the city manager's office, his staff is meeting somewhat regularly with FDOT on the nuts and bolts of this particular project. And we've always said from day one that the devil is in the details, and now the details are coming out. And so I implore my fellow commissioners to keep an eye on those details, because these details are not necessarily Deerfield friendly. And it's something that we have to keep an eye on going forward. These, we'll be asked to approve agreements without having certain facts and circumstances in place. And I think that's intentional. That's my opinion. No one told me to say that. That's my opinion. And I've lived this process long enough to know to keep not one eye open, but both when it comes to FDOT in this particular project. So any letter that the city manager intends to bring forth to us, I obviously would like to put in my input into that. I encourage you all to read it and to put in your input as well. And I want to thank the city manager for bringing that suggestion up, because I think it has reached the commission level where we need to chime in, because the conversations are not necessarily all in our favor. So I'll leave it at that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. You really meant when you said you're leaving it at that. So, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say, comments and comments. Now, I would challenge everyone here that lives in the city of Deerfield to know a little bit about your city history, and then I ask one crucial question: have we grown? Have we gotten any better? Is the city trending in the right direction? And here's why I'm bringing that up. When I first moved here, the day that we worked in that Pioneer Day, not Pioneer Day, it's called Friday. And I can remember when there were huge parades on Hillsborough Boulevard. And there were rebel flags all over the fourth on one place. And used to say that was not an invitation for everybody to come out and enjoy the rest. And so, we looked at that, but I think we're also charged with responsibility to look at how the city changed. First of all, the name was changed to Pioneer Day. And Great Way Elementary, which is a Black elementary school. And it was a Black elementary school for what reason? Because segregation was in place. Kids could not go to school together. And so Great Way was there to educate Black kids. And Great Way, so many other people that were involved with that, was the Grand Marshal of Pioneer Day. What does that mean? And do we just pass by that without acknowledgement? Understanding from where we came to where we are, and having understood that Deerfield Beach, like many other places, made monumental mistakes in how people got along. But are we getting better? And I say, when you have a situation like what we had with Pioneer Day, and I looked at that flow, and I looked at, the people that was there, that was very diverse, people that along the parade route, kids asking for candy, that sort of thing. It was a very nice thing. And I really, really enjoyed that. The Black History Month for the city of Deerfield Beach, we're growing and getting better. And I want to thank staff. I want to thank city manager and his staff for consideration for Black History Month. We're getting better. The Black Heritage Banquet was a huge success. I want to thank my colleagues for coming out to that, being a part of it, showing their face. It was said, and I want to tell you that our sheriff was there, there were a lot of politicians politicians that were there. But they were there because they say you have to do something very nice in the city, and they appreciate it. I would like to thank the city staff. I'd like to thank Teresa Rader for the great job that she did in helping with that. Teresa, great job. Thank you. I'd like to thank Liz Ritchie. She did a good job. I'd like to thank Monique Spencer, who just worked tirelessly, bringing things together. Monique is a very good person. She's done a very good job. I just want to thank her as well. And I'd like to thank the African American Heritage Board for the attention that they put in on it, trying to put this on. Now, I was asked by some people, why did you have that in double tree? So why do you have it with double tree? And the answer is, we needed more space. And guess what? Even at the double tree, it was sold out. So that was the reason. And lastly, when Clark Reed brought up about the water bill, there is confusion. My water bill, I don't know. I just pay it. Because I don't know the gallonage. I don't know how we got to where we are in terms of like what I owe. There is some problem with that. It's not clear to me either. So she actually makes a good point. And other people have complained to me about that water bill. So I would say that, there is some validity to what you're saying. Again, thanks to my colleagues for, for their attendance over at the Black Heritage Bank, but I've been getting a lot of calls about it. And, it just turned out really, really nice. So thank you very much. That's it for me.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, if there's specifics, I think it would probably be helpful to staff when it comes to the water bill as far as what's confusing. I know that we have coming forward a letter of support. I don't know if we have done on this commission, but letter of support for the commuter rail system that I know that staff's been working on that letter. Of course, we have the Urban Land Institute in town this week. We have a public workshop on this on Thursday to talk about the commuter rail and what some of the options are and possibilities are. I wanted to thank this partnership that we've had with the Urban Land Institute, which has been fantastic, which is an organization in which you have a lot of experts in certain fields that come in and give some real world advice as far as what could possibly happen or what we could possibly explore for certain projects like this. If you look at Sullivan Park, the Urban Land Institute was vital in bringing that forward. So and their input on that early on was tremendously helpful. And I will always be grateful for sitting next to the gentleman on a plane trip to Tallahassee, who happened to be from the Urban Land Institute, which is where I first found out about it. So I'm glad they're in town and that we're working on that. So I encourage the public to come out and give their input on that. Letter, we also, I'm going to recommend, and we put together, and I know we're working on it, a letter of demands or concerns that we have regarding 10th Street. As represented on the MPO, I'm going to ask to have it put on the agenda, or at least have a discussion on it at the MPO level, so we get their full support. Because I do feel at this point that we are sliding back to what we've had before. I think we've overcome a lot of it, and we're sliding back to a situation. FDOT is forgetting some of the promises that were made or discussions we had, and are now trying to slide in and move forward on projects just because we've been able to kind of come to agreement on how to move this project forward. So the sooner we have that, the better we can go ahead and do that. Earlier tonight, I made a comment during one of the public comments. Mr. Wayne Adams made, of course, he used some inappropriate language, but we'll forgive him for that. But I erroneously said he was reading someone else's words. I thought he was quoting somebody because he made a couple of quotes in there. But those, I think, I misspoke on that. He actually was. His quotes down. So hopefully no harm, no foul on that. As far as the Black Heritage Banquet, I have no problem with double trip. one thing I would say, and I hope that they look at is, one of the toughest decisions I ever made sitting up here, one that still kind of bugs me, is when Pastor Willie Ford was still alive, you brought forward putting linear park on 10th Street in Africa. Pastor Ford was still alive at that time. I had always had a problem naming things after people before they pass, because there have been cases in South Florida which things have been named after people. Something has occurred, and then the city is stuck in a situation where they have something named after someone who has done something that is not worthy of them having their name on a facility or something like that. So I was the lone voter against that. I stuck with my guns just out of what I felt was a standard policy. And that one always bugged me because you couldn't think of a better person to have something named after. So, we had some wonderful honorees on Saturday night, all of which had recently passed away. We still have a lot. And, I think about it, I would have loved to see Mr. Charlie. I would see other people. There's so many. I hope we have a portion where we recognize people who go along with this and maybe not have gotten the acclaim they deserve. But I'd really like to see us give out awards to people who are still with us, especially people who have been here for a long time, done a lot of great things. I know that you had verbally mentioned Wayne Barton, give him praise. There's a lot of other people out there, whether it be, people that have served or people that are volunteered. There's a lot of people out there, and I would love to see us get the opportunity to recognize them others they are. Yeah, this was just a unique situation. It was different. Yes, I agree. This was, it struck me as unusual. I knew that wasn't what we normally do. We can kind of maybe get back into that, and I think I might lighten up a bit on that when it comes to honoring people that are still with us, who probably in a position that when Pastor Ford was to really do no harm at the point in their life. But it's just something that as a suggestion on that. Other than that, I believe that is all we have. I want to thank staff for all the great events we had, how it was handled, and what they did. I want to thank the public for coming out and participating in. All the volunteers who did a fantastic job. I love the fact we were able to do our first bonfire. I know as turtle season will eventually come to an end and come back for season over. We'll be able to start looking at doing that again. So I look forward to that. I do want to say this. We go round and round about sitting up here and make all sorts of accusations about what people's intent was. I'm sitting up here. I am not afraid to challenge people when they're just going to sit here and flat out lie. So I'm just going to put a blanket statement out. I'm not going to tolerate it. The internet is a soapbox for cowards. Okay, if you're going to go online and make some disgusting comments about people, personal or anything like that, especially when you live in glass houses, it's really something that I'm not going to put up with sitting up here. I get the luxury as the mayor to run the meetings. I am not going to be afraid to call people out when they say things that just simply aren't untrue, whether they're, and it's a hard enough world that we live in dealing with difficult decisions. But when people muddy the water with just complete untruths that are intentionally untrue, it's just not okay. And I'm not afraid to challenge them. We all have the right to debate. We all have the right to have a difference of opinion. But some of the things that go beyond that, and this is unique to Deerfield Beach, it's not unique to this commission. It's happening everywhere. You talk to every single city that we know. They have their group of people that just do things that go beyond the pale. And it happens all the way up our national level. It's a shame. We can debate, and I think our debates are getting a little heated up here. And I think we need to kind of keep focused and make sure that as we're trying to win support on items, that we're not taking people down and trying to get that support. And I can be guilty of that as well at times. So I hope that we all just kind of come together and talk about these issues factually, as opposed to people taking personal shots that really don't have any place in the argument. So with that, I want to Thank all of you for being here and promotion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.